Hey there everyone, welcome back to the Zentangle Project Packs series. This is part 2 in our 12 Days of Zentangle series in Project Pack number 2. That's a lot of information there. Anyway, part 2 of day 2 of the 12 Days of Zentangle. So in part 1, we created a tile that looks something like this. If you didn't do part 1, I recommend going back and maybe doing that one before you get started on this part of it, and that way everything will make sense when we start putting things together. I'm going to put this part aside for a little bit. We won't be needing it till the end of the video. I'm going to go over some of the tools I have here. So in this portion, we're going to be working with a white 3.5-inch square Zentangle tile. Okay? And the tools I'm going to be using include a gold jelly roll, a black micron PN, or an 01 or an 03 or something like that. And then also a graphite pencil, a white charcoal pencil, and then the corresponding tortillons. I like to have one for both my white and for my graphite. And you'll notice right here that I do mark the one for my white so that I can try to keep them separate. So let's get started here. I'm not going to tell you what the end result is going to be because it'll be more fun that way. So just follow along and enjoy the process. Just like we would any other Zentangle tile, I'm going to ever so carefully just put 4 dots in the corners of the tile. Breathing, taking your time, and then ever so carefully connecting those dots to create a border. Turning your tile as you work. Alright, so we're gonna break out our tile into 2 different things before we put our tangles on. We're gonna put in a very simple string. And you can do this 2 ways. One way is if you still have that little piece of paper you cut out from the tile in the first part of this video series, you can just put that down in the center and trace around it. If you don't, you can simply draw an orb about that size, or you can use the other tile to trace the inside. A couple of different options. I'm going to use this to create kind of like a circle. You could take this one and put that circle there. It's really just a rough string line we're going to be using. It doesn't need to be exactly the same size. It doesn't really matter. We're going to draw over it anyway. So just a really rough orb shape that's about the same size as that original orb we cut out. Okay? So we're going to get that down there. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put down our pencils and we are going to pick up our black pens, okay? And you may want to watch me for a second here to see what I'm doing, but I'm going to create these little ribbons on the corners here. It's going to be a fun little detail, but I want you to watch carefully how I do it, okay? I'm going to just carefully put a ribbon like so that sort of hugs around the corner there. I'm going to turn my tile, do exactly the same thing over here, kind of curves around the edge there, turn my tile, sort of almost like a little strip that is holding the border on here. You don't want it to make it too thin, so if you can sort of visually look at the proportions of mine, fatter is better in this case, so don't make it any thinner than mine. Something about like that. Okay? Now I'm going to put down my black pen for a second and I'm going to take my gold pen and I'm going to fill those bands in. And I like to do this right in the beginning because it sort of like isolates these as their own sort of gilded space, and then the tangles will sort of float around them. So you can go ahead and fill in all 4 of those bands. Okay, now we have all 4 of those with their pretty goldness in them. Remember that the gel ink does take a minute to dry, so don't jump right into touching it or rubbing your hand over it. I'm going to put my gel pen away for a little bit, and I'm going to go back to my black pen. And I'm going to begin with a tangle called poke root, and I'm going to sort of interchangeably go back and forth from poke root to poke leaf, and I'll show you both of them, and you can play around with both of them on your tile or just stick to one of them. Either way is totally fine. So I'm going to work from the corner here and go underneath this gilded area, and I'm going to draw a stem that goes underneath like so. Then with poke root, you simply put sort of a little curved cap on the end of that stem, and then I'm going to draw a big berry where the stem kind of falls almost in the middle there, okay? And see how that orb goes all the way around, but it doesn't go over that stem line. So that's your basic poke root shape. I'm going to keep drawing that same shape, capping it off, with each one kind of falling behind the others. Draw another one over here, kind of coming behind. And I'm kind of ignoring my string line. And the idea here is I'm going to continue to draw this, and some of them might overlap this circle a little bit. I'm just using that as sort of a guide about where I want to stop them, but I think some of them are going to go over that space. So I'm just going to use that as a guide, but I'm not so concerned about it being exactly where I want to stop. Okay? If you want to try some poke leaves almost the same way, but instead of it being a berry, it's got this sort of more of a leaf shape, or an upside down heart as I sometimes see it. So I'm going to continue to draw poke leaves and poke berries kind of coming from each corner and filling this whole space around here. Some of them may be falling inside the circle a little bit, but kind of leaving that space pretty open. All right, I have filled in a lot of poke leaf and poke root, and you may have chosen to do just one or combine them both, or maybe you wanted to explore another tangle like Rixty or something like that. Feel free to explore all the options. I think what I'm gonna do now is I like to have this time where I go back and sort of fill in some of the interstices, and I think that's really gonna make my composition pop a little bit. So what I mean by that is these little spaces that kind of come between, I'm just going to take a few moments here to just ink in those spaces. All right, so I think I got all those little spaces, and as you can see, it really kind of helps bring a little bit more definition to the poke leaf and poke root. And I didn't go all the way to the edge, I just worked the area that was within the border, so it has a little bit of a nice effect, but you're welcome to go all the way to the border too. I just like the way it looked, kind of having this dark area beneath just that area. So we have a space in the middle, and I think we should put another tangle there. Unless you're enjoying that open space, then by all means leave it there. I am going to put a tangle called Tripoli in the middle here. One of my favorite tangles. I love to draw it, I love to teach it, I love to see all the different things people do with it. So here we go. I'm going to start in the middle and then work my way out, and the Tripoli is going to kind of fall beneath all these poke leaves that have sort of infiltrated into my space here. So Tripoli is all about three-sided shapes. Some people call them triangles. I like to just call them three-sided shapes. And I'm gonna start by drawing one about that big in the middle. Okay? Once you have that three-sided shape down, just pause for a minute, take a breath, and then allow yourself just to focus in on one line in that three-sided shape. Just find one line. I'm focusing in on this one right here that I'm sort of circling with my pen. And then I'm going to simply draw a line that parallels and auras that shape like that. Okay? Have to be perfect. And then I'm going to kind of take note of this space here, because that's going to be my spacing throughout. Mine kind of got a little warped, but that's totally okay. And then I'm going to create a second three-sided shape out of that line. Step and repeat. Take a deep breath. Find a line on that three-sided shape to focus in on. And then simply draw a parallel line that sort of auras that line. Exactly. Then use that line to create another three-sided shape. Turn your tile, take a deep breath, find a new line on another three-sided shape, aura that line with a nice parallel. And you notice how I fell behind that poke root. Deep breath, aura, three-sided shape. And I'm not so concerned about these three-sided shapes being perfect. The idea is to create that aura. So as you can see, that last one is a little bit more tricky. You have to create an aura here, and then one as well here, and then finish it off to create a three-sided shape. Let's continue on. Take a deep breath, find a line to focus in on, create your aura, your parallel line, and then finish off the three-sided shape. I'm gonna finish this basic Tripoli here all throughout that space. Okay, so I have my Tripoli filled in with that space, and as you can see, we're starting to create some very cool things happening here, and once we get this all shaded, it's all gonna layer out. So one more thing I'd like to do is I'd like to add a filler in my Tripoli, and that will really help define the poke root around here on top of the Tripoli. If you're enjoying the way your Tripoli looks, just that plain openness, by all means leave it that way. That's totally an option. I'm going to show you one filler for Tripoli. If you have a primer, there's a page full of different fillers to explore. You may have a favorite one you want to try here, so feel free to put a different one that I'm using. But here's what I'm going to do. This is one of my favorite. Just a simple arc inside the triangle that stretches from each corner, just like so. Okay, so I've put all those arcs in, and I have one last step to this filler that I'm gonna do, but again, if you enjoy the way it looks just with the arcs, again, just leave it, because these are all different patterns that we're layering on top of one another, so at any stage you can say, ooh, I like the way this looks, I'm gonna stop. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put an orb inside each one of my kind of spaces with the arcs, so it almost looks like the arcs are sort of supporting that orb. I really just kind of like smush it in there, so it's almost like the orb is falling a bit behind or getting dented by the arcs. And I'm gonna actually take a minute to just ink in that space that's left behind when I put the orb in, so something like that. All right, so I got all my orbs in, I got all my ink put in, and I think I am all done with my black pen for now. I am going to add another step here, just because I can. Again, at any point in time, you're welcome to not do the next step because there's always different options. But I'm gonna pick up my gold pen here, and this just looked too inviting. I'm gonna put gold in where those orbs are just to make them like these little gold jewels that are inside those shapes. Okay, so I think I have all my pen work done here. We did all kinds of fun stuff, and everything is looking good, but I think the shading is really gonna add that dimensionality that this tile is kind of calling for, to me anyway, and I happen to love shading, so here we go. I am going to, first of all, make sure that all the ink is dry on my tile because you don't want to start shading and notice that your gel pen was a little bit wet and you were smearing it all over the place. So you really want to make sure that the ink is dry first. And then I'm going to start off with my poke leaf and poke root, and I'm just going to play around with some of the layering here. So I'm just going to go around and add little bits of shadow where my poke root and poke leaf seem to be overlapping. Maybe a little bit where this band is. And just kind of playing with it all the way around. So I'm going to do that on all the poke leaf and poke root. So once you've worked your way around all the poke leaf and poke root with your graphite pencil, then you're going to want to go and kind of invite all that graphite in with your tortillon. So just kind of softly buffing out the graphite, softening that shadow. Throughout all the poke leaf and poke root. Alright, so I have all of the shading on my poke root, I think, and you can touch it up as you go along and add a little more here and there. That's what's so great about shading. And now I need to do something with this Tripoli because I'm still trying to figure out a way to sort of bring some dimension to it. And I like to add some real drama with my shading, so I'm going to go pretty heavy-handed here. If you're more comfortable putting down a lighter bit of shading, that's totally fine here. So I'm going to go in pretty dark right near the edges of my poke leaf and poke root, and then as it gets closer to the middle, I'm going to ease up a little bit, but I'm just going to do the edges here. And you don't really need to go over the gold too much. I can go just lightly over the gold. So I'm going to work my way all the way around with this nice dark graphite, easing up as it gets closer to the middle, but really not touching the middle. I want to leave the middle white, so I'm just near the edges here. I'm not going very far into the middle. You can go all the way around just like that. Once you get all that dark graphite in, then go back with that tortillon and just kind of gently invite it into the center. Really want to leave that center white, but just kind of blend that dark graphite in. So many layers we've been working with here. Just work your way all the way around. Okay, wow, what a difference that makes. So feel free, if you don't like to go in real dark right at the beginning there, feel free to kind of play with layering it, but as you can see, adding that really dark bit just makes the two tangles kind of independent of one another. So you have this beautiful poke root and poke leaf kind of going over this sort of Tripoli thing underneath. I'm going to do one last thing here. I'm going to add a little bit of white charcoal on the top just because I can, to make this a little bit more mysterious here. So just kind of taking the side of my charcoal pencil right here in the middle of this tripoli, and it's just kind of adding a little bit of a mystical glow. So you're welcome to explore this or not. It's a lot of layering, it's a lot of kind of blending, but it's sort of a style I like, but you could have left it without, so don't feel like you have to. I sort of at this point am using the charcoal pencil to blend itself, but I like that sort of look it gives it right in the center there. Okay, so we have this tile pretty much done. As you can see, I've added my chop here, and I'm all finished with this part of it. And what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna add a little bit of a detail. As I said earlier, you're gonna need an X-Acto knife at the end. So we're gonna need that right now. So if you don't have one now, you can do this later and maybe just watch how we're gonna do it. So I have an X-Acto knife here. When you're working with an X-Acto knife, you're gonna wanna have some sort of surface to cut on top of. So I have a piece of chipboard here that I'm working on, a thick piece of chipboard. You might have one of those cutting mats, and that would work great too. So whatever you have, you just don't want to cut directly on your table because you might not be happy with that afterwards. So we're going to do a couple of just pretty straightforward cuts here. And the idea is that we're going to slice either side of our little gold strips here. And we're gonna do that all the way around. So how we're gonna do that is we're just gonna take our X-Acto knife and cut right down the line on this side and then right down the line on this side. If you have a nice sharp X-Acto knife, it should take just one cut. So you're gonna wanna do that, go around to all four corners and slice a slit on either side of the gold. Okay, so once you slit those gold strips, you should be able to kind of, with your fingernail, kind of poke it out a little bit, nice and gently, and it should kind of be separated from the tile where you cut it and then still connected right here. So you want to be careful with it. You don't want to rip it. So just be nice and careful and separate it, and then you can put that aside. Then we're gonna grab part 1's tile. And as you can see, my corners right here, I've been sort of curling them up a little bit with my fingers. So I just went to each corner and sort of, didn't quite fold it, but I sort of like kind of curled it up a little bit just to kind of help with the shape. And I just went around each four corner and sort of just bent it a little bit. Paper, this nice cotton paper, is so malleable, and it's pretty easy to do that. So once you go around and do that, I'm going to combine the two tiles by taking the corners of the black tile and slipping it into the slit on the white tile, like that. And then I'm just gonna go around and do that on all four sides, nice and carefully. Might take a little playing with. And the kind of curling up of the black tile kind of helps with that. So it should kind of nestle in like this. And that's pretty much it. It creates this kind of cool three-dimensional object. I don't know what you want to call it. Maybe you lean it against something cool in your house. Maybe you put a string on it and hang it from a window. Maybe you hang it from a tree. Whatever it is you want to do, it's kind of a festive, three-dimensional, interesting object. And I really like how you can kind of look inside and see this kind of interesting thing going on. So that's our day 2 project. Thanks for joining in part 1 and part 2, celebrating a black tile and playing with it on top of a white tile, adding a little gold. And feel free to explore different ways to play with this same technique. Have fun, everybody. See you next time.